In 2025 alone, Norway rejected pork from 7 major U.S. companies, citing illegal chemicals, inhumane slaughter, and falsified export records. Yet that exact same meat is still sold openly across American supermarkets. Bacon laced with banned preservatives, sausage stuffed with hidden phosphate blends, pulled pork made by underage, unpaid workers. If another nation with stricter food laws can identify these threats, why are we still blind to them? According to Norway's Food Safety Authority and the European Food Integrity Task Force, the pork America exports is failing basic safety inspections, again and again, for reasons that go far beyond simple labeling errors. We're talking chemicals linked to kidney failure, labor practices that violate international law, and factory farm waste contaminating rivers downstream. And yet we're the ones swallowing it. So the question isn't just what's in our meat, it's why are we the only ones still eating it? This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. Today we uncover 10 American pork products that Norway has completely banned, but are still sitting in your fridge. Number 1. Smithfield Foods. You might think that if it's good enough for American breakfast tables, it should be good enough for anywhere, right? That's the comforting illusion wrapped around every pack of Smithfield bacon or ham, the red, white, and blue label, the familiar logo sitting in the freezer aisle at Walmart, the sweet thought that this pork was made for families like yours. For decades, Smithfield has been sold as the blue-collar badge of pride, cheap, filling, and USDA approved. But while we're busy flipping slices on the skillet, something much uglier is sizzling beneath the surface, something that made Norway slam the door shut on Smithfield pork entirely. As of mid-year 2025, Norway enacted a full ban on Smithfield pork imports. Not a restriction, not a warning, a full stop. Why? Because of ractopamine, an animal growth drug that helps pigs gain lean muscle faster. Sounds like a harmless shortcut until you realize it's banned in more than 160 countries, including all of Europe. Norway's food authority made no bones about it. If pork contains even trace amounts of ractopamine, it doesn't get in. And here's the kicker: scientific reviews, including one by the European Food Safety Authority in 2024, raised red flags about potential risks to the heart and nervous system, especially in vulnerable groups like children and seniors. So while Norway draws a hard line, we're still tossing that same pork into our carts without so much as a warning label. No one tells you what's inside, no one says a word, and no one stops to ask. If this stuff is illegal in most of the developed world, why is it still being quietly served to working families here? But the rabbit hole doesn't end with chemicals. A March 2025 investigation found that Smithfield plants in Nebraska and North Carolina had been fast-tracking hot meat, pork that hadn't cooled long enough to kill bacteria. Workers described scenes of blood pooling near cutting lines, knives getting reused without proper cleaning, and managers turning a blind eye just to hit production numbers. One employee likened the process to feeding a blender with pigs and praying it doesn't jam. Behind that chaos is an even darker layer: labor abuse. ProPublica exposed that Smithfield had outsourced hiring to third-party recruiters who funneled undocumented immigrants into the most dangerous positions. Some workers faced threats of deportation if they spoke up. One woman lost part of her finger and was sent back to work the same shift. And still, the product ends up in your home, on your plate. Oh, and in case you thought this was a purely American company looking out for American interests, Smithfield has been owned by China's WH Group since 2013. In early 2025, a U.S. Senate subcommittee reopened inquiries into whether the company was using its supply chains to bypass safety regulations and dump questionable pork into domestic markets. Norway's response? A blunt announcement: Smithfield's parent company does not meet the transparency standards we require for food suppliers. So now what? Do we keep pretending everything's fine while serving tainted meat to our grandkids? Thankfully, you're not out of options. Try Neiman Ranch, available at Sprouts and Whole Foods, where pigs are raised humanely and ractopamine-free. Moe's Meats, a trusted Midwest butcher chain, offers subscription boxes with full traceability. Or get creative. Roast turkey thighs can outdo factory ham any day. And mushroom lentil spread brings all the flavor, none of the fear. Because if a cold Nordic country can stand up for its people's health, why are we still swallowing what they won't even let past customs? Number 2, Tyson Foods. It's almost muscle memory. Walk into any grocery store, ask for Tyson, and someone will instinctively point you toward the meat aisle like it's gospel. Their pork products are everywhere, convenient, budget-friendly, and always wrapped in that comforting seal of USDA approval. For folks watching every dollar of a fixed income, Tyson seems like a middle ground. Not sketchy deli leftovers, not overpriced organic frills. Just reliable protein, or so we're told. But while we stock up without blinking, Norway took one look and said, "Not in our country." In early 2025, Norway's Food Safety Authority made an unambiguous move. Recommend banning all Tyson pork imports. Their reason? Tyson was flagged for repeated non-compliance with EU-aligned rules on food processing and animal welfare. Translation? Not just one slip-up, but a pattern. What pushed Norway over the edge was a scathing report by the European Center for Food Integrity detailing Tyson's failure to prevent Listeria monocytogenes contamination in multiple European-bound pork shipments. Some boxes sent to Estonia and Finland were so foul, customs agents blocked them on the spot due to visible bacterial growth and rotten stench. Norway's decision came swiftly after. And here's the part that stings. The very same meat still gets served here in the US, from school lunches to dinner tables in working-class homes. In March 2025, Tyson voluntarily recalled close to 70,000 pounds of pork due to Listeria concerns. And yet, the USDA allowed them to keep selling in domestic markets under enhanced monitoring. That's like putting duct tape over a leaking gas pipe and telling the kids it's safe to breathe. But bacteria is just one piece of the rotting puzzle. In February 2025, undercover footage blew the lid off Tyson's Iowa slaughterhouse operations. Pigs beaten with paddles, tails cut off with no anesthesia, animals packed so tight they couldn't move. Workers laughed as the pigs screamed. The video, authenticated by Reuters, was released by Animal Outlook and spread like wildfire. So much for the humanely raised label they slap on every shrink-wrapped package. Norway didn't mince words. Cruelty this blatant has no place in their food chain. Still think it ends there? In April, Bloomberg exposed Tyson's subcontracted farms for polluting Missouri's Elk River. The result? Over 500 dead fish, locals with smelly, discolored tap water, and sick livestock. Tyson denied responsibility, then quietly settled for $6.8 million. No mention of that in their sustainability brochures. And if ethics really matter, here's the blow that lands hardest. In May 2025, the Department of Labor began reviewing new allegations that Tyson was rehiring migrant minors, over 200 of them, at pork and poultry plants previously shut down for child labor in 2023. Internal reports suggest these kids were handed fake IDs and shoved into graveyard shifts and dangerous sanitation roles. The meat they scrubbed still winds up in everyday homes. So let's not sugarcoat this. We're talking contaminated meat, brutal animal treatment, poisoned rivers, and children cleaning blood off slaughterhouse floors at 2 in the morning. And yet, Tyson pork is still stacked proudly in your local store with a slogan promising quality. If you're ready to opt out, start with Applegate Farms. It's ractopamine-free, humanely sourced, and easy to find at Target or online. Prefer local flavor? Beeler's Pure Pork from Iowa sticks to clean practices with third-party audits. Better yet, check out your farmers market, Amish meat co-ops, or shared hog programs via eatwild.com. When neighbors split a whole pig, everyone eats better, for less. Because if Norway calls it too dirty, too cruel, and too dangerous for their people, maybe it's time we stop calling it dinner. Number 3, Hormel Foods. It's the can that never leaves. The pink brick that outlasts power outages, snowstorms, and even presidential terms. Spam and the entire Hormel pork lineup has become a familiar fallback for folks stretching every last cent. From canned hams to microwave ribs, Hormel's pitch is simple: food that's easy, cheap, and built to last longer than your fridge. For older Americans juggling grocery costs with medical bills, that little pop top can feel like a dependable friend in hard times. But here's the gut punch. While it's still stacked high in US stores, Norway has decided Hormel pork doesn't belong anywhere near its people's dinner plates. In May 2025, Norway's Food Safety Authority issued a trade advisory calling out Hormel's pork products for violating their national food laws, specifically for lacking transparency about additives and composition. The trigger? An April review by EU regulators showed Hormel's canned meats contained sodium nitrate at nearly double the EU's acceptable limit. Sodium nitrate has long been linked to colorectal cancer, but what infuriated regulators most wasn't just the chemical, it was the complete absence of clear labeling. No warnings, no explanations, just ambiguous ingredients hidden behind vague terms like cured pork and seasoning blend. But Norway wasn't only concerned about what was in the can, they looked behind the curtain too. In February 2025, a joint investigation by NRK revealed that Hormel's primary pork supplier in Iowa had repeatedly failed animal welfare inspections. Pigs were found crammed into filthy pens, some injured, some barely moving, many exposed to harsh lighting and little ventilation. Hidden camera footage showed exhausted workers jabbing weakened pigs with electric prods like it was routine. The image was anything but wholesome. Back in the US, the story took another turn. That same month, an NPR and AP joint report revealed that Hormel pork served in schools across Mississippi and Georgia was linked to a Salmonella Heidelberg outbreak that sickened over 24 children and elderly residents. Though Hormel issued a quiet recall, they refused to connect the dots, despite USDA records showing their facility had just failed an inspection for improper heating during packaging. In plain English, some of that meat never got fully cooked. Then came the labor scandal. In March, Food and Water Watch published a damning report showing subcontracted Hormel farms in Minnesota were using migrant workers living in trailers without plumbing and getting paid below minimum wage. Norway's health officials didn't hold back. Products made under such conditions do not align with our humanitarian standards. Add to that their misleading export labels, terms like mechanically separated meat and proprietary spices that hide what's really inside, and you begin to understand why not just Norway, but also Sweden and Denmark called Hormel out in July for deceptive international marketing. So the same canned pork sitting on your pantry shelf during hard weeks, it's banned or flagged across Scandinavia, but here, it's sold as value and nostalgia wrapped in tin. That's not just misleading, it's dangerous. Looking for a cleaner alternative? Try Dakota 29 or Tendergrass Farms, nitrate-free, naturally preserved, and available at Aldi and online. Or go back to basics. Slow roast a pork shoulder with vinegar, garlic, and sea salt, then can it yourself with mason jars. If that's too much, Field Roast's lentil-based roasts offer rich flavor with zero animal worries and no cancer-linked preservatives. Because if Norway won't touch it, maybe it's time we stop pretending Spam is just a harmless throwback. Sometimes the comfort food you trust most might be the one hurting you quietly. Number 4. Seaboard Foods. You won't find Seaboard splashed across a pork label at your local grocery store, but make no mistake, you've probably had a bite of it this week. Maybe it was tucked into a breakfast sandwich at a drive-thru, stirred into chili at a school lunch, or hidden in a discount sausage roll. Seaboard Foods is the stealth supplier of America's pork, quietly feeding the masses through fast food chains, cafeteria programs, private labels at Walmart, and even correctional facilities. It's faceless, efficient, and government approved. But when Norway looked behind the curtain, they didn't hesitate. They shut the whole operation out. In April 2025, Norway's Veterinary Institute issued a formal trade alert banning seaboard pork after multiple shipments from their Kansas and Oklahoma plants were flagged at European entry points. The offenses? Poor traceability, animal welfare violations, and high contaminant residues. One shipment of pork loins landed in Rotterdam with chlorine-washed surfaces exceeding European safety limits. Norway wasted no time. They pulled the plug under what they called precautionary health safeguards. Now here's the disturbing part. Chlorine washing is perfectly legal in the US, widely used to disinfect pork bound for school trays, fast food buns, and discount freezer bags. But in Europe, it's banned based on growing evidence that the practice masks poor sanitation and may leave behind carcinogenic byproducts. And guess where Seaboard sends its chlorine-treated pork? Right back to us. But scrubbing meat with chemicals is just the appetizer. In February, a blistering investigation by ProPublica in the Midwest Center for Investigative Reporting uncovered abuse inside Seaboard's Guymon, Oklahoma plant. Line speed so fast that workers couldn't even stop to breathe, let alone stay safe. One man lost his hand to a deboning machine. OSHA showed up. The factory didn't stop. Seaboard shrugged. Norway called their practices ethically non-compliant. Let's talk pigs. Seaboard's massive supplier farms spanning Iowa, Missouri, and Kansas were cited by the Humane Society in January for tail-docking piglets without pain relief, using tiny gestation crates that barely fit the animals, and allowing unsanitary overcrowding. An internal audit leaked to journalists revealed more than 300 piglet deaths per week at just one facility, trampled, neglected, forgotten. Then came June. The Kansas Department of Environmental Quality slapped a Seaboard-linked feedlot with a $1.2 million fine after toxic waste from their lagoons spilled into farmland and waterways. Farmers reported dead fish in irrigation canals. Norway's Ministry of Climate and Environment took notice and blacklisted Seaboard's pork for posing what they called a multi-sector environmental threat. Meanwhile, in America, nothing on the label. No hint that your sausage links come with a side of chemical wash, a missing finger, or a drowned trout. Just a barcode and a sticker that says value. So how do you escape the invisible pork pipeline? Start with White Oak Pastures, a regenerative farm out of Georgia offering pasture-raised pork shipped nationwide. Yes, it costs more, but your conscience doesn't come with additives. Or try Cook's Venture, recently greenlit for Swedish export and now stocked at select Sprouts and Misfits Market. Got a chest freezer? Split a pig share from your local meat locker or co-op and get full transparency from barn to bacon. Because if even the Norwegians, people who snack on fermented fish with a straight face, say no thanks to what's in your hot dog, isn't it time we stop pretending it's just pork? Number 5, Hatfield Quality Meats. The name practically begs you to trust it. Hatfield Quality Meats sounds like it should come with a porch swing and a handshake. It paints a picture. Small-town farms, handwritten recipes, grandma flipping pork chops in a pan while church bells ring in the distance. This Pennsylvania brand leans hard into that image. Family-owned, American tradition. And for decades, shoppers have eaten it up, literally. You'll spot Hatfield products at ShopRite, Acme, Sam's Club, and in plenty of working-class kitchens trying to stretch a dollar. But in Norway, that Rockwell fantasy hits a cold, bureaucratic wall, and not by accident. In May 2025, Norway's food authority issued a restriction on all Hatfield pork imports after identifying serious transparency issues around synthetic additives and product traceability. The red flag? A European Commission review just weeks earlier found Hatfield's pre-marinated and cured pork products laced with undeclared phosphate blends. Now in the US, phosphates are common, used to keep meat juicy and shelf-stable. But in Europe, they're restricted because of known links to kidney damage, cardiovascular problems, and mineral depletion, particularly dangerous for older adults. The scandal wasn't just about the chemical itself, it was about Hatfield not owning up to it. Their export files failed to disclose phosphate levels in products labeled extra tender or easy grill, two names that suddenly sound a bit ironic. Norway's Mattilsynet slammed this as a clear breach of consumer safety law, calling it a deliberate omission of required information. But the red flags didn't stop there. In March 2025, the Food Integrity Alliance exposed ties between Hatfield and several contract farms in rural Pennsylvania that had flunked 3 straight animal welfare audits. The documentation was grim. Piglets with raw tails, 0 outdoor access, filthy pens. And when animal equality flew drones over those farms, the footage showed limping pigs packed in dark, musty sheds, some with open sores, images more fitting for a horror film than a meat label boasting ethics. Just to drive it home, Pennsylvania's own Department of Environmental Protection fined Hatfield's Montgomery County facility $425,000 for dumping nitrogen and phosphate-rich waste into the Perkiomen Creek. Fishermen downstream reported slimy algae blooms, dying trout, and silence where there used to be birdsong. Norway, of all countries, cited that exact incident as evidence of systemic disregard for environmental stewardship. And if that weren't enough, January 2025 brought testimony from Hatfield slaughterhouse workers who said line speeds had been illegally accelerated. What that means is more injuries, more overlooked contamination, and inspectors allegedly told to shut up or lose the contract. One even quit in protest. But the kill line? It kept rolling. Back home, though, none of this drama makes it onto the label. Hatfield's pork still sits neatly wrapped with smiling farm scenes and phrases like ethical sourcing and family values. It's on sale, buy one, get one, right next to the eggs and orange juice. So where do you turn when even quality can't be trusted? Look toward Carlton Farms, based in Oregon, nitrate-free, pasture-raised, and fully traceable. Red Top Farms also offers humanely raised pork sourced from real family operations and shipped nationwide. Or explore local buyers clubs and Mennonite meat co-ops, where the pork is packed in vacuum-sealed truth, not mystery marinades. Because if meat can't clear inspection in a country where fermented fish is a delicacy, maybe it's time we ask, what are we swallowing with that $5 sausage deal? Number 6. Farmland Foods. The word farmland alone feels like a lullaby from a simpler time. It conjures up golden wheat, chirping birds, red barns, and a farmer wiping sweat off his brow beside a grazing hog. That's exactly the image the brand wants you to picture as you grab a pack of vacuum-sealed bacon from the grocery cooler. Since the 1950s, Farmland Foods has carved its place in American kitchens as a symbol of small-town purity. Bacon, ham, pulled pork, all wrapped in promises of tradition and clean living. But behind that nostalgic glow, lies a cold, chemical truth, one that Norway decided in 2025 it could no longer ignore. In June of that year, Norway's Food Safety Authority officially restricted farmland pork from entering its borders. The reason? A dangerous trifecta: poor traceability, unclear additive labeling, and repeated animal welfare violations. It started with a review from the European Food Safety Authority, which found farmland's pork sausage and pre-cooked bacon laced with synthetic preservatives BHR and BHT, chemicals long banned in much of Europe. These additives have been tied to endocrine disruption and potential cancer risks, especially in aging populations. The kicker? Farmland didn't even bother to label them properly on export documents. Norway wasn't having it. Their officials issued a public statement on July 1st. Farmland pork products do not meet the minimum standard of consumer right to know. To them, the omission wasn't just a mistake, it was a betrayal of food transparency, and they called it out for what it was: evasion. And the rot goes deeper. In April, The Intercept published an investigation showing that Farmland works with Missouri hog farms flagged for routine overuse of antibiotics in deplorable living conditions. These pigs weren't being treated, they were being suppressed. Packed shoulder to shoulder in giant, slatted floor sheds, they were fed antibiotics daily, not because they were sick, but because their environment was so filthy, sickness was inevitable. Norway responded bluntly: these are not acceptable systems of food production. That same month, drone photos captured by environmental watchdogs showed massive manure lagoons linked to farmland suppliers leaking into Missouri's Osage River Basin. The result? Contaminated groundwater, nitrate spikes, and fecal bacteria invading rural communities. Farmland denied responsibility, of course, but internal EPA documents later leaked showed the company had signed off on those exact waste management plans. And if that weren't enough, in May, NPR broke a story about Farmland's Arkansas plant, where night shift workers were reportedly ordered to repackage expired pork. Whistleblowers say spoiled meat was soaked in new brine and relabeled as premium cuts. The public label still bore the classic American farm tradition logo. But what's beneath that shrink wrap is a different story altogether. Farmland pork still floods American stores under various house brand and deli labels. Their bacon ends up in breakfast sandwiches at gas stations. Their pulled pork appears in pre-seasoned BBQ kits across the Midwest. And unless you read every fine print, you'll never know what chemicals or conditions it came through. Want to step away from the illusion? Look into the Piggery, a small but growing operation out of New York offering nitrate-free, pasture-raised pork with full farm traceability. Yes, it costs more, but it's real. If you're cooking at home, brining your own pork loin with salt, garlic, and bay leaf turns out tastier and far safer than anything flash-packed in mystery fluid. And for those considering a full break, Upton's Naturals BBQ jackfruit gives you smoky flavor without the baggage. Because if Norway, where they eat reindeer stew without blinking, draws the line at Farmland's bacon, maybe we should stop letting labels tell us what's clean and start finding out for ourselves. Number 7. Daiyas Premium Meats. Premium sounds comforting when it's wrapped around a pack of bacon, doesn't it? Daiyas Premium Meats evokes breakfast at the diner, sandwiches packed for the grandkids, or a familiar slice of ham sizzling in a skillet while the coffee brews. For years, the brand has coasted on this easy charm, harmless, affordable, and right there in the freezer section when you just need something that works. It shows up in school cafeterias, buffet trays at retirement centers, and discount meal kits. But in 2025, Norway took one look behind the branding and banned it outright. The story broke in March when customs agents at Oslo Airport stopped a shipment of Daiyas cured bacon, Lab results showed high levels of sodium erythorbate and sodium phosphate, both synthetic preservatives restricted under EU law due to their links to kidney stress, heart strain, and sodium overload. One sample contained nearly 3 times the legal limit for sodium phosphate in Norway. For a country where food safety is treated like national security, that was more than enough to slam the brakes. But it wasn't a fluke. In April, the European Food Integrity Task Force revealed Daiyas had repeatedly listed vague ingredient terms like flavor-enhancing salt blends instead of naming actual additives. Norway responded with forceful language, calling the tactic deceptive and a violation of basic consumer rights. When a nation with strict transparency rules finds your labels manipulative, you don't get a second chance. Unfortunately, the label was the least of their concerns. Back in February, animal welfare group Compassion USA released disturbing undercover footage from a Montana farm supplying Daiyas. The scenes were gut-wrenching. Pigs lying in pools of waste, covered in sores, tail docking performed without anesthesia, and piglets dying unattended in metal crates. There were no vets, no compassion, just cold metal and corporate silence. Norway's regulators condemned the footage outright, stating, "This footage reflects systemic abuse incompatible with our food supply." Labor conditions weren't much better. In May, OSHA cited Daiyas' Salt Lake City facility for 19 separate violations, including extreme cold, exposure, unsafe machinery, and line speeds that turn humans into statistics. Several workers suffered amputations after glove entanglements. Internal memos later leaked showed managers had urged staff not to report injuries to avoid slowing down production. Norway's Directorate of Health listed the case as proof of unethical labor behind the product. And then came the environmental bombshell. Daiyas' rendering plant in Idaho was hit with a $980,000 fine in April after inspectors found nitrate-laced wastewater flowing into tributaries that feed the Snake River. Nitrate levels were 30% above legal thresholds, threatening the water supply for downstream farming communities. Norway cited this violation as their final reason for the ban, aligning with the EU's strict environmental criteria for imports. Yet here in the US, that same bacon is still on sale. No warning, no red flag, just a label with the word premium and a price tag that makes it hard for low-income shoppers to say no. It's stocked in bulk buy bins, sold by the pound, and served in places where people don't have time to decode fine print or worry about piglet mortality stats. But there are real alternatives. Heritage Foods USA offers pasture-raised, dry-cured pork without synthetic preservatives, available online and at select natural markets. For tighter budgets, Aldi's Never Any line has tested clean for nitrates and passes EU standards. Want full control? A slow-roasted pork belly at home, just salt, rosemary, and heat, beats chemical-cured bacon every single time. Because when a country known for eating reindeer says your bacon is too dirty, too cruel, and too dishonest for their shelves, maybe it's time we stop treating premium like it means anything at all. If even Norway won't swallow these pork lies, why should we? Subscribe now and demand better food for every American plate.
Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our daily content. Now feel free to check out some of our newest and best videos currently showing on the screen. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.